Good morning, everybody. My name is Hung Shur. I'm here today being Saturday, April 24th at 5:30 in the morning, probably Friday, April 23rd, where you are, chances are, unless you're here with me in Australia. We are going to be looking into the Dharma Flower Sutra, the Fa Hua Jing, stories of Guanyin Bodhisattva, the Pumanpin, Universal Gateway, Universal Door chapter of the Lotus Sutra. So if you have come for that purpose, welcome. We are here together of one mind. Now, to get us started in the traditional way, we're going to request Dharma. And today we have a layperson named An Lebo from San Jose who's going to help me request Dharma. And what we're going to do first is we're going to ring the bell. And I'll ring it 3 times and do a half bow from where I'm sitting every time. All right? You're welcome to join me if you like. First bow. Here's the second bow. And our third bow. Our Dharma request formula is on the screen now. Okay, if you'd like to begin requesting Dharma, now's the time. Thank you.
好，恭请大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱世离苦得乐，殊真无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the best, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye olahudi samyao sanputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye olahudi samyao sanputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿皆如来真实义。 supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered throughout billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All right, thank you very much for the Dharma request. Well done. Let's do 1/2 bow. Okay, that gives us our formal beginning to
Amitofo.
Amitofo. So now, who's that on the screen? That is Guanyin Bodhisattva with her Jingping and her mudra. And this image is just about 100 feet from where I'm sitting right now on the hillside by a pond. We call it a billabong here in Australia. And Guanyin stands there through the countless autumns, they say, waiting for us to request saving, waiting for us to request all kinds of help. And Guanyin Bodhisattva appears in whatever form is needed to help us. So we are in the section of the text called the Jiu Qi Nan. This Guanyin Bodhisattva is saving us from 7 kinds of difficulties. This is followed by Man Er Qiu, Guanyin Bodhisattva fulfilling 2 wishes. And then that's followed by Jie San Du, removing 3 kinds of poisons. Then that's followed by Shou Shi Si You Wei, Wu Wei Fa, teaching 14 kinds of courage, fearlessness. And then followed by San Shi Er Ying, 32 transformations. So what the Universal Door chapter, our Pu Men Pin, is about, essentially, is Guanyin Bodhisattva responding to all the different situations that we people put ourselves in that require help, right? This is in accord with Guanyin Bodhisattva's vows. And Guanyin made those vows to respond to those in need and to provide that kind of help when needed, right? So, my goodness, I've always had the feeling when I read the Pu Men Pin that it would be an amazing series of novels, adventure stories. Guanyin shows up at the last minute when all other hope is gone. There's just not much else that will save you. And right at the moment, right when you need it, this hand comes out, and sure enough, you're rescued. So that's our basic story. And there's more, of course, and we'll get there in time. Guanyin Bodhisattva's conversation with the Buddha, and with the Buddha is there accompanied by another Buddha who is speaking from a stupa. Duobao Rulai, many jewels, Tathagata, abundance of treasures, thus come one, Tathagata. And the conversation is fascinating because the speaker of the sutra, the one who's basically doing the storytelling, is named Infinite Resolve, Wujin Yi Pusa. And we see Guanyin giving away a necklace, and Guanyin doesn't want to keep it. It's been given to her as an offering, and the Buddha has a conversation and instructs Guanyin in what to do, and of course she listens. There's a conflict of interest happening, and the Buddha prevails to the highest kind of generosity, and Guanyin does a number. It's fascinating, right? And then we get to there's one of the most memorable aspects of this chapter is the description of Guan Yin's transformation. Her shape-shifting would be one way to talk about it. In Chinese, it's called Huashen, the transformed bodies, also known as the Yingshen, the response bodies, the responses that Guan Yin makes to those needs. And one of the qualities that occurs, that pops up from within, right? One of the abilities that is already innate, inherent in us, and it's explained in the sutra, not just in the Lotus Sutra, but in many sutras, that coded into our nature is the ability to appear in a different form with intention, wanting to. It's all built in, and it has to be uncovered and trained, and you can appear in a different body. And oh my goodness, we because of Buddhist code, we call it, sort of the language of the Dharma and the way it's passed on. The Chinese have this genius, you could say, for making essential complex ideas and principles and coding them into the most economical, essential form, kind of like a diamond form, adamantine, can't be reduced any further, can't be changed any further, so that it can be passed on through the generations. Often the Chinese would do that in what are called 四字成语, 4-character phrases, but not always. Sometimes it's just in the most essential form of principle. But Guan Yin has, in her story of coming down from a Buddha, from a Buddha who looked at living beings and said, here I am in nirvana, and people are suffering too much. I am not going to stop. I need to stick with my vows to help those living beings. That's Guan Yin's, the greatness, they say, of Guan Shiyin. And so Guan Yin says, I want to come back, or the Buddha says, I want to come back as a bodhisattva, and appears as Guan Yin Bodhisattva to show up with 1,000 hands, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 ears, with 32 bodies as the time is right. So we go, right. We know Guan Yin has, as a Buddha, has a Dharma body, a response body, and the body that appears as a human with 32 hallmarks, right? The reward body. And that's Buddhist code. Sanshan, the principle of Trikaya. Sanshan, we nod, we say, yeah, okay, what else? We zoom right by it. We swallow it in a single gulp. Full stop. 3 bodies, Dharma body, reward body, response, transform bodies. How is that possible? And you go, well, it's in the nature. It's hardwired. It's coded in. It's inherent in us to have that ability. You have it, I have it. Okay. In the Lotus Sutra's Universal Gateway chapter, Guan Yin appears, explains those 32, and of course, our teacher, Shen Gong Shangren, Shifu Shangren, Master Hua would say, 不止, not only 32, Guan Yin can appear in 32, 320, 3,232 million billion response bodies when needed. The number isn't important. The sutra specifies 32. And what do we call that in popular culture? Shape-shifting? Who knows what that is? Well, you could say Fantasy fiction probably is the genre of literature that has that one covered. But usually it's somebody who becomes a werewolf or maybe appears as an eagle, or a dragon. That's, those are still rooted in reality that we can deal with, right? But Guan Yin's supernatural, amazing ability to, first of all, Guan Yin, hear our sounds, contemplate our need, and then to respond in just the right form at the right time is the amazing function of what? Da Bei, great compassion, Maha Karuna. We're talking about vows and compassion. So that's it. Amazing, amazing, right? And here's the story of that. So talk about what I said was it often seems like an adventure story, something that would Hollywood would know exactly what to do with stories like these and turn them into fantastic movies that would keep you locked into your chair, except when the suspense got too much and your hair stood on end if you had any hair. So that's the way I read it often. And yes, it is sacred literature. Yes, it is a holy scripture. Yes, it is the hallowed, the wonderful, inconceivable, sublime Lotus Sutra. But man, it's somebody who, in their time of need, remembered to recite Guan Yin's name. And this incredible response happened just in the nick of time. So, yeah, all of the above. Here's our text. Are we ready? Here it is. We'll do this one and this one, and we'll go down to the bottom. Here we go. 若有持施观世音菩萨名者，射入大火，火不能烧，有是菩萨为身力故。若为大水所漂，称其名号，即得遣除。若有百千万亿众生为求金银琉璃、车具、玛瑙、珊瑚、湖泊、珍珠等宝，入于大海，驾驶黑风，吹起船帆，漂堕落差归国。其中若有乃至一人称观世音菩萨名者，是诸人等皆得解脱落差之难，以是因缘名观世音。If those who hold the name of Guanshi Bodhisattva should fall into a great fire, the fire will not burn them because of Guanshi Bodhisattva's awesome spiritual power. If they are being tossed about in deep and treacherous waters and call her name, they will quickly reach the shallows. Hundreds of thousands of myriads of millions of men in search of gold, silver, lapis lazuli, moonstones, carnelian, coral, amber, pearls, and other precious treasures, may run afoul of violent squalls that blow their ships to the lands of Rakshasas. But if even one man among them calls the name of Guanshi Bodhisattva, then the entire group will all be saved from the throes of the Rakshasas. For this reason, she is called the enlightened one who listens to the sounds of all the world. All right. So these among the 7 kinds of rescues, here are 3. And I considered doing them one at a time and coming up with stories in between. But I'm aware of not wanting to go too slowly, but I'm also aware that within these amazing, amazing episodes, there are so many stories that choosing among them, I thought the thing to do is not try to match it, each one specifically, and not entirely to dig into the rescue, the response literature of the past, but also to use experiences from my own collection of Guanyin Bodhisattva's responses, including some that are very personal, my own life being saved by Guanyin, and also some that I've witnessed and heard about that are contemporary responses to Guanyin Bodhisattva's limitless ability to hear our sounds and extend a hand. So what do we have here? We've got conflagrations. What else? Floods. What else? You could say jewel merchants, treasure hunters, right? And how many jewel merchants do you know? Not that many, but they exist. And it's specific. People who go to the sea, go into the ocean in order to bring back things that don't exist on the land. So they're valuable. And it lists them, right? And what do they run into? They run into demons, Luo Chakwe. What are Luo Chakwe? Well, interesting. Probably we know them by other names. And certainly if you go ask sailors, ho, 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 they will tell you. Having been a merchant seaman in my own life, I know there are things that my fellow sailors just didn't want to talk about. They would roll their eyes, they would stare at you, turn their backs and walk away because it wasn't something you talked about. My goodness. And I have a story that I won't tell today because I have something else lined up. But I have a story from the stretch of water between Ningbo and Putuo Shan, Putuo Luoqie. If you want to go to now in the 21st century, if you want to go to Potala Mountain, where Guanyin Bodhisattva traditionally, historically lives and teaches, you have to board a vessel. In Ningbo is the closest. You can also go from Shanghai, but it's further. You go to Ningbo and get on board the ship that takes you to these two small islands off the coast in the East China Sea. Together, both are called Putuo Shan, but it's Putuo and Luoqie, two islands. And that's it. That's Putuo Shan. Traditionally, that's how you get there. When you're in Putuo Shan, you look across a stretch of water, a strait, and over there on the horizon is a small island called Luoqie Shan. To go from one to the other, you get on board a much smaller vessel. And because not everybody wants to go to the smaller island, the vessel is kind of like an open-decked pleasure craft, kind of like a Chris craft that will hold maybe 20 people. Not so big. I don't know how many feet that is in marine terms, probably 20-foot boat, something like that. And it's not a ship, it's a boat. And my goodness, that stretch of water is treacherous and weather blows up really quick. And boy, do I have a story about my crossing from Putuo to Luoqie Shan, Nega Haidao, that island. So we'll talk about that. Not today. I'm just going to tease you today and leave you wanting more from that story. But what do we have? We started out with fire, right? If those who hold the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva should fall into a conflagration, a holocaust of fire, the fire won't burn them. Because why? Because of Guanyin Bodhisattva's awesome spiritual power. Okay? But notice, if one man among the merchants calls the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva, Nian Bi Guanyin Li, to recall Guanyin Bodhisattva's Wei Shen Li, her incredible spiritual strength, all will be saved from the fire, from the flood, from the ghosts, from the Rakshasas. All right. So here's where my story begins. And I was a witness to this story. If you will recall, just a very few short years back, a fire, forest fire, broke out in Northern California. And I was in the habit of going to City of 10,000 Buddhas on Sundays. And I would go on a lecture at Berkeley on a Saturday night. And in the morning, drive up to CTDB, or in the afternoon often, and then lecture and then come home. And the lecture went fine. I decided I was going to go back Monday morning and spend the night. So driving up at 3 p.m. through Santa Rosa, through Windsor, Calistoga, Cloverdale, and then, on up Hopland. Everything was normal and fine. There was nothing unusual. Gave my lecture, went to sleep, woke up, wanted to get in the car, and everything had changed. There was intense smoke in the air and ash and warnings that driving through Santa Rosa, the highway might be blocked. And I jumped in the car and drove south. And in the time, between the time I went to sleep and the time I woke up early, an intense forest fire had broken out. This is the picture from Redwood Valley, which is 20 miles north. These are monks at Abhayagiri Forest Monastery, where people do indeed recite the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva, but equally importantly, cultivate the way. The monks in the Thai forest tradition cultivate hard. They keep their Buddha hall ceremonies regular. They each have their meditation practices. They follow the Buddha's Vinaya, and it's a place where lots of energy is given to practice of the Buddha's way, right? And including reciting the name of Guanyin. Bhikkhu Chotipalo tells us about his practice. South of Redwood Valley, looking to the forest, you see the stars in the sky and the size of the forest fire that descended on Northern California that night. So the monks at Abhayagiri, now I made it through Highway 1 past Santa Rosa, and remember the Coffee Ridge neighborhood, and there were flames burning on both sides of the road as I drove south, and clearly there was going to be serious loss as I made it across the Richmond Bridge into Berkeley and started to discover the extent of the damage in Sonoma County, Mendocino County, Lake County, right? The monks at Abhayagiri at 2 and 3 in the morning heard this sound from the neighborhood, and they're way out on Tom Kai Road at the end of the road, although it's not actually, it's the end of the paved road. 2 lanes become 1 lane, 1 lane becomes a dirt track. That's the way out. And they had agreed with their neighbors over the years that if there was ever any sort of necessity, they would blow air horns, that irritating sound that you hear from the stands of football stadiums. And when there's one, and then there's two, and then there's steady, like that. And when the air horn blows steady, it's evacuate. There's trouble. And so Ajahn Jotipalo tells the story. He was in charge because the abbot of Abhayagiri, Ajahn Pasano, had gone to Vermont to attend ceremonies for the opening of a new temple. He was called away on official duties to the East Coast, to the Green Mountains. He wasn't on campus. And so there were 20 some people, including lay people. They had 7 vehicles, but the sound of the air horns brought everybody out of their kutis on the mountainside to this scene. This is what they saw when they came out of their kutis. And the neighbors were going, honk, 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 escape, run, evacuate. So the monks got into the vehicles that they had and decided that they had to abandon their Prius because why? The neighbors came and said, do not try to go out Tom Kai Road. It's blocked. You can't go out to the highway. You can't get out to Highway 101. You've got to go over the mountain track. So they left the Prius. They got in the pickup truck, and there were too many people for the vehicles that they had. And the story is within a story. Ajahn Jotipalo said they had to think, they had to consider running for it on foot. And here came a line of big SUVs with plenty of storage and seating, and the trucks nearly ran them down as they accelerated into the mountains. Why? It was the local marijuana growers who were rushing to save their crop, never mind the people. So they were almost run over by the local growers. Yeah. And then a beaten up pickup drove up and said, get on board. Don't leave anybody behind. If you got everybody. It was the local neighbors who had room for all in their truck that was riding on the springs over this 7 creeks that the trail crossed in order to get to Willits. They got to Willits, and here in Willits was I think it was the YMCA with fitness rooms for the monks to sleep in. They called it monastery. They put up, it was in the high school. They put up a sign so the monks could have their own space. Never mind the spelling, right? Monastery with an E is correct spelling. So the monks were so grateful that here in Willits High, they were invited to be welcome in Willits, thanks to the Red Cross. Gave them their own space. And the fires were burning on all sides, and nobody knew what the extent of the destruction was. And of course, Ajahn Pasano was, a continent away, the other side of the country, just needing a report, an update every hour from the monks. So they were wondering what to do, where to go. And the monks, first of all, went out to a Buddhist community near the coast. They went west on the highways because the fires were pretty much to the east at this point. And they got a call. We heard about the situation. Somebody called us and said, the Abhayagiri monks need a place to stay. So they spent the night in a layman's home over there on the coast, and discovered that this was not going to work. But here was a community escaped, and they didn't know what was going on with their land. So they all were reciting, they were being mindful. Those who had Guan Yin's name as a practice recited Guan Yin's name. And it was a disaster, truly the Dahuo. Our monk Jin Chuan Shi, heard the story that the monks were loose and looking for a home, and contacted the administration at City of 10,000 Buddhas and immediately put in a call and said, please come to CTDB. We have room for you. You'll be welcomed. You'll be safe. And the monks said, we're coming. So this was the arrival of the Abhayagiri Sangha at CTDB. And we have various photographs here of what it was like with the two Sanghas together, chanting together, working together. At this point, Ajahn Pasanno had returned, welcoming all the Sangha and the laity to the community, the mixed Mahayana Theravada community at CTDB. Here that the Abhayagiri laity joining in at the city. Anagarikas continued their training. Everybody pitching into the work. When you have all of these strong, vital monks all worried about their own monastery, what's going on, right? And that energy is put to work. Here's Ajahn Pasanno. It was quite a wonderful situation, actually. The kind of thing that you wish could happen more often, you know. Here watching, looking at the robes mixed in Mahayana Theravada together inside CTDB. Put them up. Everybody in harmony. Clearly, Master Hua would approve of this kind of community. All right. Now, the situation was such that we had to depend upon briefings by the local fire marshal, who every day would tell the residents who had been, you know, evacuated that night, running for their very lives, indeed, running for their lives. When was it safe to return? And the answer was always not yet, right? Abhayagiri and CTDB working hard together. There was a week, I think it might have been 10 days, if I'm not mistaken, when everybody was just hanging on the sheriff's briefing. Here they are, with the television on, the computer on, looking, waiting for the news, right? And the authorities, this is, I think they're attending. I think they went in person to the briefing. There are people, you know, so many Ukiah neighbors showed up just because everybody on the east side of the highway had no notice. They didn't know whether they were going to show up and find their homes ashes, right? So this was life during that week. And the news came from the sheriff that based on the flyovers from the helicopters, based on the reports from CAL FIRE, the firefighters, now was the time to go back. So the Ajahn Pasanno from Shifu Seat gave their their thank yous, their final Dharma talks, paid their respects, made their plans internally. Here's Ajahn Jotipalo telling the story of the escape. And personally, I remember going into what's known as the old library. For a few years, it became the DRBU building, but it used to be called the guest building. It was the first actual structure at City of 10,000 Buddhas when it was the hospital. Looking over the shoulder of Ajahn Jotipalo, because someone had passed them the website of a CAL FIRE maintained website that was internal that showed heat signatures. So taken from a spacecraft. So a satellite was giving a reading of the forest below where the heat was. And as far as they could tell, as close as they could identify on the map, the location of Abhayagiri was a little dot of green surrounded by red where the fire had burned. So in those days, in that week, when there was no news about what had happened to Abhayagiri, their own research showed that there was a spot of green. Could that be the monastery? Could they have survived? And Abhayagiri had just finished building their brand new Buddha Hall and Activity Center. A major work of years and all of their financial resources put into the design and construction of this brand new facility that had not yet been opened. It was due to be opened in the next 2 months, and the fires came. So don't you know the poignancy of this time? The sheriff, the fire marshal says, you may return. You can go back. A caravan back to the monastery, up Highway 101, turning right at West Road, going past all the vineyards, going to the intersection of Tomkai Road, which is Redwood Valley, and discovering the extent of the devastation of these horrible fires. Driving past their neighbors. West Road. Arriving at Abhayagiri. You see the looks on their faces. What is left? Seeing, to everyone's amazement, that CAL FIRE had stationed so many of their vehicles in the parking lot at Abhayagiri. It was a staging station for all of the neighboring firefighting efforts were stopped there. They had all of the water trucks and the fire trucks and the SUVs and all that they used were right there in the parking lot. And the firefighters go, "Oh, you're the owners here?" He said, "Well, we have a story for you," they said. Up the steps to the new building. Nothing burned. Nothing burned. And monks and laity alike put their palms together and bowed. The situation was controlled to the max by National Guard, by firefighters, by sheriffs, by police, because this was dangerous. People could, the air is toxic, the water is toxic because of the ashes and all of the things that burn, and there are still pockets of fire left. So everything was controlled. And the monks started walking around the perimeter and discovered their neighbors. Houses burned. Only a Buddha left. This was someone's home, but they found the Buddha unburned. The neighbors, Tom Kai Road, nothing left. Ashes. The fire was still being extinguished on all sides. Here were firefighters from New Mexico, many of them, interestingly, Apache Indians. This is the parking lot at Abaigiri. And what did they say? They said, "Oh, you the guys who live here? Yeah, we got to tell you, whatever you're doing here, keep doing it. We've been fighting fires all over the West. We have never seen a forest reject the fire. The fire came over the ridge, heading for your place, and stopped, turned around, and went back. Some sort of juju, whatever you guys got going on, keep doing it," they said. These are not Buddhists, right? These are rough and tumble firefighters from New Mexico, from Texas, from Southern California, including prisoners out fighting fires on good behavior, right? And they were amazed at what they saw, the behavior of the fire. Ajahn Jodhipalo hugging every firefighter who would let him. The fire came over the ridge, got to the monastery's property, and stopped. Didn't burn the propane tanks. This is the scene. Still burning. These are the firefighters who developed a very wholesome faith in Buddhism because, as they said, your forest rejected the fire. How could this be? Some trees were still burning. Here's fire. Somehow we sustained no structural damage. The fire seemed to avoid all our structures. Burned, singed the outside of the water tanks, but didn't burn them. The fire burned to the edge of the property and stopped. Didn't burn this wooden shrine. One bridge needed to be repaired, 2 wooden steps. Something about Abaigiri, where monks recite the Buddha's name, meditate, hold the precepts, recite Guan Yin's name. Something prevented the fire from burning further. Here is a shrine to one of their laymen, and the fire burned to the edge of the property, but wouldn't cross. Right? This is a shrine to Ajahn Chah, made of wood. The fire burned to within feet of it, but it didn't burn. Here's a Buddha image looking out over the devastation. On the boundaries, the trees died. And the firefighters, with their bulldozers, made a trail break. And certainly their work was essential. Ryan saved Redwood Valley Rancheria, Native Americans' home, fought the fire all night long. Bulldozers came through. CAL FIRE continuing to repair the fire breaks. And Abaigiri, along with their new construction of the building, had just paved a new road. And the road was blacktop. Here in Australia, they call it bitumen, right? Blacktop. And it's very vulnerable to the treads of these huge, heavy firefighting machines. Well, the firefighters laid down plywood so that the treads wouldn't tear up the road. These are Native American fire crew from Arizona, protecting the road because they recognized what damage their machines would do if they didn't. Look at that. Now, the story continues. There's more to this because right next door on all sides were the homes of people connected to the monastery. Their homes burned to the ground. The community walked over. Here, often in many cases, the only thing that survived was the Buddha image. Everything else perished in the flames. A birdhouse unburned. But you can see the extent, the trees were all blackened. NBC came out and interviewed one of their lay women who lost everything. Found other images in the ashes. So the monks and friends made a circle. Here is the Prius that was abandoned because they couldn't cross the creeks on the evacuation night. Survived. Here's another Buddha that didn't burn. But you can see the loss. And yet, somehow, Abhayagiri itself remained unburned. And here's an image that came out of the ashes. This, if anything, is a powerful symbol of the Buddha Dharma's strength in surviving catastrophes, as it did in China after many purges by evil-minded emperors. Cal fire moving in, the rains return. This is Tuesday, 2 days later, after the rain, the vegetation returns. The rains start to fall, putting out the last of the embers. But the fire crews continue to protect the land. The crews would get a lot more done if we'd stopped hugging them. Wildlife coming back. And the work continues on the new hall. But when I said the story goes on, it's that right next door to Abhayagiri is another monastery, not the Catholic monastery that's there, Mount Tabor, but it's a Thai name, KPY. It was bought by a fellow Thai monk who knew Ajahn Chah's reputation and was looking for a way to kind of borrow the light of Abhayagiri, so built a monastery right next door, but had no monks, only a caretaker. And as a result, the images were there, but there was no cultivation going on. Nobody reciting Guanyin's name. When the fires came, that monastery burned. Here's the caretaker describing, see the burned trees. Look at the remains of what could be sacred space, but no one reciting Guanyin's name, nobody cultivating the way, no monks there, just a caretaker. It burned. Alms bowls that no one was using got singed and scorched. Even the Buddha images didn't survive here because it had the outer form of the Dharma, but it didn't have the heart. It wasn't cultivated. And how tragic. 33 Buddha images are collected. So indeed, the last remaining part of a Buddha image, talk about a symbol of the necessity to cultivate the way. And how marvelous that the Catholic monastery, Mount Tabor, which was also right next door, because the monks of Mount Tabor, the neighbors of Abhayagiri, are vigorous in their cultivation of their Catholic faith, their monastery was saved from the fire. 3 places, 2 of them, one Catholic, one Buddhist, because of worship of the Blessed Virgin with all of the icons in the Catholic monastery, because of the worship of the Buddha and the actual cultivation and the recitation of Guanyin's name, Abhayagiri, 2 monasteries made it through the fire. As the text says, if those who hold the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva should fall into a great fire, the fire will not burn them because of Guanyin Bodhisattva's awesome spiritual power. So don't take it from me, just use your own eyes. Truly a story for the ages happening right in Redwood Valley. Guanyin Bodhisattva's awesome spiritual power. Nian Bi Guanyin Mi. Say, mindful of Guanyin Bodhisattva's awesome spiritual strength. All right. Now, the headlines in the newspaper that I'm reading say that many places around the world are experiencing a horrible 4th surge of coronavirus. So let's keep reciting Medicine Buddha's mantra for our transference, right? I think the power of this mantra to bring healing where there is illness, to bring wholeness where things are broken, to bring unity where our thoughts are scattered and emotional. I think this is the very medicine for the illness. So let's recite. In Sanskrit, 3 times, Medicine Buddha's mantra for anointing the crown, transfer the merit to all living beings. Thanks for joining, everyone. Look forward to being with you next week for more amazing stories of Guanyin Bodhisattva's compassionate strength in rescuing us from all kinds of troubles and difficulties. See you all next week. Please have a week of peace and joy. Amitofo.